So, thanks everybody for coming today. I'm Howard Gray, worked for GreenBlue Urban on and off for the last 30 years. I don't know everything about trees. I don't know everything about anything actually. I'm not even a tree hugger. I've got a wife, I've got 5 kids, I've got a granddaughter, I've got other things in life to hug. Unlike the Prince of Wales, I don't even talk to trees. But I'm absolutely passionate that urban trees make a massive difference to our health and well-being. And if we go back 1,000 years, where we're standing would have all been forest. That's why we have to understand that a lot of our land was originally forest. And what we need to do is to get back towards that. Now, we're not talking about knocking all the places down and just planting trees, but what we're looking at is the idea of reforestation. So instead of having trees in our cities, we have cities within the trees. And that's when we start getting the benefits. It's really important we understand what benefits we get from our urban trees. We get a myriad, but the most valuable one is what it does in terms of stormwater management. Trees hold an enormous amount of water on their canopy. Ever shaken a branch over somebody's head when it's been raining? You know, they get wet, they get cross, yeah? That's what we call canopy interception. And it's really important we understand that. Many of our issues in urban flooding come down to the fact we've lost canopy. And that's quite important. And it is overwhelmingly the big trees that give us the big benefits. Little lollipops in the street, which we have to replant every 10 years, don't do a lot for us. It's actually a fact that in many cases our urban trees take 18 to 20 years after they've been planted before they get carbon neutral. So we think by planting a tree, replanting it every 10 years, we're doing something for the environment. We're stuffing it up. What we want to do is get back to this idea of reforestation and get decent canopy cover. When we look at benefits of trees, they pretty much tightly correlate to our leaf surface area on our trees, not your trunk diameter. Often people think that it's down to trunk diameter. If I plant so many small ones, that'll equal to a big one. But it's not like that. If that was true, it'd be a bit like trying to calculate your IQ by measuring your waist. If that worked, I'd be up there with Einstein, wouldn't I? So what we're looking for is what's going on in the top, what the benefits are. And we need to think about this whole idea of these climate changes. We're seeing them, they're already happening. Do you realise in 2019, in this city alone, over 430 people died prematurely because it was too hot? That is serious. You might have thought that London doesn't exactly strike you as somewhere where you die of sunstroke, but the problem is that many of our older buildings are built to keep us warm in the winter, not cool in the summer. And we can fit air conditioning, but actually it's far more effective to do planting. And we talk about the flooding challenges as well. These hotter, drier summers, we enjoy it for a while, and then it just gets too much. Now, trees actually cool the air. They take water out of the ground, they push it out through their leaves, and that means that your air around, your microclimate around a canopy is measurably cooler. One decent sized tree can give us the cooling effect of 10 room-sized air conditioning units. And what we're finding is the shade stops the sun heating up our hard surfaces, and then the evapotranspiration cools the air. And that's really, really important. And it doesn't take any energy. It's doing that just by photosynthesis. And then we have these other issues of the flooding. Barely a day goes past without somewhere in the world we hear of tragedies because of more extreme rainfall events. And this, right now we've got Australia, Queensland underwater. Tremendous downpours. We've had it in this city last year. We need to think about this because what we're looking for is a way in which we can mitigate this. And green infrastructure is great at doing so. Now, I don't know if anybody recognises this picture. It's outside St Paul's Cathedral. Those trees in the background were only planted 15 years ago in GreenBlue Urban systems. Now, most people who look at it think those trees have been there 50 or 60 years, but those trees are invaluable. It's almost impossible to put a value on them, what they are doing to our urban infrastructure. And what we find is that when we have trees in our urban areas, people take advantage of them. You find that cafes will move their tables out under the trees. That's because, do you realise people will pay more For a coffee, if you can sit outside a cafe under a tree to drink it, about 10% extra. Now that's really valuable, because if you actually normally ask a cafe owner, can I plant a tree outside your cafe? They'll start talking about leaf litter. They'll start talking about their signage being obscured. You tell them they can charge 10% more for a coffee and they'll ask for 2 trees. And I think it's really important we make this financial understanding of the value of our green infrastructure. And as I've mentioned before, trees mitigate in terms of our rainfall 3 different ways. The first is canopy interception. A London plane tree will hold nearly 80% of the first 20 mil of rainfall on its canopy. That never hits the deck. That never goes down the drain. That's held on the canopy until it either evaporates or is absorbed into the leaf. That's quite a lot of water. If you think about the plane trees in London, that's probably thousands and thousands of gallons held on the canopy. But they also take water out of wet ground and push it out through their vascular system. And as they root through the ground, trees enable deep infiltration. That water travels down the surface of the roots right down to the depth of the rooting, which can be a metre. That means we're returning water back to the ground rather than into our drains. And apart from that, they make it a more pleasant place. This was Socky Hall Street in Glasgow. Very vehicle-dominated road, not particularly nice place to be, very hot in the summer, bit featureless. Received some money, Glasgow did, from the government, and they actually returned it to a more pedestrian-friendly street. Half the street now is for cycling and walking and for tables from the cafes. Trees right down the middle, over 30 trees down the centre of the road. Cleaning that water, cooling the air, making it more pleasant. Cycling has let by over 80%. People are going for a walk down there now. And this has become a nice venue. And I think a lot of us are thinking about how we can consider how we're going to use our high streets. And I think they're going to become more venues, places we want to go because they're nice. We go to charge the car, we go to have a coffee, to meet people, not just places we go to buy. And green infrastructure is so important as part of that. A little bit closer to home, this is Joel Street in Northwood Hills, as it was before. There again, very hard surfaces, not particularly biodiverse, not particularly climate resilient. What we did was plant trees down the centre. And this has made it a lot nicer place. Opening hours are longer, restaurants have moved in, it's become a vibrant town centre. And this is the clue of using green infrastructure, reforestation, as part of a wider strategy of improvement. As I mentioned before, if we talk about a forest, we only get about, with the forest, we only get about 40% evapotranspiration and 10% runoff. Now this is really important because it is the runoff when it rains that causes us problems. What we're seeing here is in an urban situation, we're getting up to 55% runoff. That's a massive amount of water. Do you realise, who knows what a combined sewer overflow is? Ever heard of it? No? Anybody ever heard of a combined sewer overflow? Well, it's what we have in here in London, and it's all happened around the world. We have what we call a combined sewers in our older towns and cities. One pipe under the ground that deals with all our foul sewage and our rainwater. The problem is they're nearly full at capacity at the moment with just our foul sewage. So when it rains, we have to open these great big valves that chucks out our rainwater and our foul sewage into the river. Underneath Blackfriars Bridge, there's a great big combined sewer overflow. It only has to rain 1.4 millimetres in the city for that to open. That's opening hundreds of times a year. We're chucking our poo into the Thames. Does that not sound a bit medieval? The problem is it's going to be a massive job to change that. This is what the Thames Tideway Tunnel is all about. But if we're going to make a change, we can do it with nature-based solutions. We can hold that water back. And this was a very interesting project we worked on in Cardiff, where they've got exactly the same situation. And what actually happened here was they took the number of streets, 12 streets, and they turned them into sustainably drained streets. And this is just one of them. What they did is they closed off all the road drains, closed off a lot of the surface water gullies. That was the before picture. And then afterwards, they've put rain gardens and tree pits up and down these streets. And it's reduced that runoff massively. In fact, they've diverted the water that comes through these into the River Taff because it's clean enough to go back in there. It's saving Welsh Water £750,000 a year in pumping costs, which is the reason they did it, but it's been far wider than that. What we've done is we've created nicer areas, We've had a lot, that whole area has become regenerated, a lot more sustainable travel, largely by green infrastructure. I want to include this one because I find this quite interesting. This is Medellin in Colombia, where they're ahead of us. They've planted these thousands of trees and shrubs across the city to cool the city. And they're achieving this cooling effect already. Within 4 years, they're getting this average of between 2 and 3 degree temperature drop. Isn't that amazing? Just by using green infrastructure. And you might have thought, well, hey, it's sensible. And it is. It's not a high-tech solution, but it is a very highly efficient one. We need to think about this reforestation to help us adapt. We've probably all heard of the urban heat island effect, and this is actually quite important to understand, that when the sun shines on a large mass of hard materials, whether it's concrete or tarmac or brick, it holds it, it heats it up, and it holds it like a storage heater, which means at night time that temperature doesn't drop very much. Green infrastructure is really, really good at stopping that heating up of the masses and then keeping it cooler. So here we have Selfridges. I guess most of us have been to Selfridges. Selfridges got a bit worried in 2015 because Westminster City Council talked about closing Oxford Street to vehicles. And Selfridges, I suspect you'll shop at Selfridges, that Selfridges have quite a large number of their customers like to be dropped off at the front door by limousine. And they realised this wasn't going to happen anymore. So they've opened this high spenders entrance in Duke Street. It's a fantastic job. They closed off the old goods entrance and they've created this high spenders entrance. But as part of the theatre and the atmosphere, they wanted some decent trees to surround the entrance. And that's what we've got. These 4 large liquid amber trees that are planted in really good soil volumes, doing a massive job. Selfridges themselves say people are more ready to spend when they walk into retail under trees. Isn't that interesting? They've actually found that out. And of course, if you're going to Selfridges, you probably are going to spend. This is the BBC building in Wood Lane, West London. This is as it was before. There's some trees in the background, but a pretty hard frontage. What it looks like now, we've put all these trees out the front. All in really good soil volumes with GreenBlue Urban soil cells. Really, really healthy. Changing the area, changing the whole atmosphere of it. The other thing we need to think about is how we can store carbon. Now, trees are really good at this. They take in carbon dioxide, they give us oxygen, and they store carbon, not only in the tree itself, but in the soil. And what we need to do is maximise our carbon storage, that sequestration, which is going to be so valuable for us. So another little project we did, this is Ipswich railway station as it was. Quite a hard frontage, quite a concrete area. Ipswich Borough Council wanted this to be more pleasant, to be reforested, and that's what we've done. Now that only took 6 years from planting to get to that big size of trees. Very, very healthy trees. And where would you rather go from? Somewhere like this or the original photo? Now I think we understand the aesthetics impression, but are we understanding all the real benefits? And GreenBlue Urban is the only company that can actually guarantee trees for at least 15 years. And this is a breakthrough because we are so confident in our systems, in our solutions, that we know that trees grow. Give them good soil, give them water, give them air, protect them, maintain them, you'll have a good tree. It's because we don't do that. It's like trying to play the lottery but missing out one of the numbers. You're very unlikely to win. So what we're trying to do is put those elements together to maximise our advantage. And we support you all the way in that. This is another project in St Peter's Square in Manchester, a very hard area, very engineered area. We planted trees and got some of the biggest growing, fastest growing trees in the world there. Very, very interesting, providing masses of benefits. Another one in Reading, near Reading, Caversham. There was this precinct area with a couple of rather poorly trees pushing up the paving. What we've done is put a row of trees down the centre. Good soil volumes, doing really well. We're looking to maximise the possibility of long, long life. We want trees to last for 200 years. Another one here, this is in Bruges, in Breda in the Netherlands. Now this was done by the EU Interreg project, trying to use green infrastructure to cool our towns and cities. Took this street, which is a multi-use street, and say we want to actively cool this, and we want to prove that it can be done. So tree pits, rain gardens, and it's such a nice place to be. And this is what we're looking for, to improve the quality of life. So what do we do at GreenBlue Urban? We provide the solutions, everything that the tree needs to get it to maturity. We provide your soil systems, we provide your underground guying to hold the trees up, your root management to make sure that you'll never get pavement heave, irrigation, aeration, make sure that soil is kept in optimum condition. So that what you have is that a good tree that's going to last for generations. My own mission in life is that every tree I plant should still be pushing out leaves when I'm pushing up daisies. And really that should be for all of us. We should be looking to hand on to future generations a healthy green canopy, green infrastructure in our urban areas, and really a reforested towns and cities across the UK, so that our grandchildren, maybe even further than that, thank us for it. Thank you very much indeed.